Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and the Obi-Wan series has quite gone by so quickly that I can't believe we're at the finale now. Episode 6 is imminent, and before it releases, I thought we'd go through our theories on the finale before we learn the answers. This is one big theory time. And obviously I'd love to hear yours as well, so make sure you drop a comment below. Now episode 5 ended with Reva finding the holo projector after Haja dropped it behind when he had to bail. Organa had left a message on there discussing Luke Skywalker, and we closed out with us watching the boys sleep like we were Obi-Wan. Bloody creepy that mate sitting on a hill watching him with binoculars, but moving on, I think this teases that Reva will of course be heading out there in order to get him. She's been abandoned by not only Obi-Wan but also Darth Vader and assistant to the regional Sith Lord, aka the Grand Inquisitor. Now this is something that she experienced in her childhood when she was left at the Jedi Temple to fall victim to the clutches of Darth Vader. Though we discovered in episode 5 that she very much wanted Obi-Wan as a way to enact her endgame on Vader, I think she also feels a lot of anger towards the Jedi in general. Obi-Wan of course returned to Coruscant, but he ended up leaving instead of staying behind to help the survivors such as her. Now though she was stabbed by Vader as a kid, we discovered that she ended up going to the Inquisitors.
You came to us from the gutter.
I think she'll likely try and win favour with them once more, and that she'll see Luke as being a way to get back into the good books. However, she could also end up using him as bait, as she knows that Obi-Wan will probably be returning there, and thus she can just wait it out until he gets back. Now though that seemed like the most pressing thing, I think the early part of the episode will focus on Obi-Wan and the rest of the group fighting Vader and his forces. This is because we got this line from Roken that explained the situation they'd found themselves in.
Our hyperdrive is down, and they're behind us.
Now if you cast your mind back to the sizzle reel for the series, then you'll remember there was a lot of concept art shown in it. Absolutely all of these except one have popped up in the series so far. This includes Obi-Wan and Aniope, Fortress Inquisitorius, the Inquisitors landing on Tatooine, the village in episode 3, Dayu, Vader talking to Reva through a hologram, and the T-47 airspeeders. The one we haven't had yet involves Obi-Wan and Vader fighting amongst the flames on board what looks like his Devastator Star Destroyer. Though this was initially thought to be Mustafar, judging by the metal grey panelling there, I think this is probably still just his ship. This needs to be a major battle, as it's kind of the one fight the entire show is built around, and going into it, this is what I think people are the most hyped for. I really want to see Vader with the helmet off, and I'm hoping that at some point in the battle, it ends up getting damaged, which leads into it having to be removed. We had something similar in the final battle during The Force Unleashed, and it would be such a cool way to amp things up. Hayden Christensen also hasn't really been in the series all that much, and even most of the moments in the suit were played out by stuntmen. Hayden has been used so heavily in the marketing, I think it's a real missed opportunity if they don't bring him out, and this would be the perfect place to do it. I think this fight is going to be a major thing in the 6th episode, and that Vader and his forces will capture the rebels as they either drop Leia off or just after it. They've been hunting the Jedi for a long time, and capturing those that control a path will give them a lot of extra info, so I think that's why they're going to be hot on their pursuit. Now there is the potential that Leia will end up coming face to face with Vader at some point, and judging by the lines of dialogue in A New Hope, she had met him before. So they could be using these moments in the series to add some more context to that before we get into the latter parts of the finale. Now Leia will obviously need to be dropped off at Alderaan because we know she spends a long time there, so I think that will likely happen, and then Bail will talk to Obi-Wan about the message again, which will make him realise he has to get back home sooner rather than later. I'd love to see the Reva and Luke scenes placed alongside the Vader and Obi-Wans, and I think it would be great to have the tense, more dialogue-driven moments getting juxtaposed by the lightsaber battle on board the Devastator. A huge shout outs to the Kinda Funny podcast who talked about the upcoming show recently, and they brought up the idea that Uncle Owen could end up being the one who tries to talk Reva down. Joel Edgerton hasn't really featured in the show all that much, and it could cement how protective he is of Luke. This could mirror their first encounter on Tatooine, in which he talked about protecting his family, and having to do it here would sort of be a bit like poetry. They rhyme. Now Reva waiting there for Ben and using Luke as bait would allow for some really human moments with Owen that would show things from his point of view for once. I really like this theory, and it would bounce nicely between the action of the Vader fight along with the tense scenes of Reva potentially killing Luke and Owen. I know we already know the outcome of this, but I read a hilarious theory saying that Reva could kill Luke and then he could end up being cloned, and the one that we follow in the main trilogy would have been a copy this entire time. I think this would be funny as and such a big you to the entire franchise that I hope they do it because I'm a nutter. Anyway, we obviously know how the Vader and Obi-Wan fight is going to go due to the aforementioned storylines. I do think it's a shame that this series has had to fit to the confines of basically making it so they can't change anything that could disrupt A New Hope, and because of this, the series has felt rather limited in what it can do. Because it can't really take Luke off-world and have him go on adventures, they've shifted the focus to Leia, and if the Reva stuff is true, it's unlikely that she'll even get her lightsaber out. Obi-Wan explained what one was to Luke in A New Hope, so I think they're not even going to be able to have her just get it out and start waving it around the air. Now they could do something where they potentially mirror him being a kid and her being a Sith Lord, which would play upon her childhood in which she came face to face with Anakin. Whereas he ended up stabbing her, Reva could wrestle back and forth over what to do, and potentially she may decide against using it because of the ties it has to her early life. Now this could also set up the way that I think the final showdown between the pair will go. Reva obviously feels like she was abandoned as a child, and this has been shown at numerous points in the season. Even when she discovered the Underground Railroad in Episode 3, she seemed angry that she had to go become an Inquisitor, whilst other Jedi clearly survived and thrived. I think that Obi-Wan will explain the situation to her, and that in doing so, it'll show he isn't the monster that she thought he was. In protecting Luke, it's very much making up for the fact that he left the other younglings to their fate, and she'll realise he's not the kind of person who'd say "F them kids." Now, another thing that also needs to be kept in line with canon is that all the Inquisitors are dead by the time we get to A New Hope. This leaves Reva with one of two options: either she goes back to Vader in the fortress and tries to win favour, or she flees into the galaxy. There are rumours of ending reshoots and a second season potentially in the works, so they could possibly go with the latter. I do think that she will discover that Luke is Anakin's offspring, and that Obi-Wan might explain that he's the best chance they've got in actually taking Vader down. This will make her realise that she can still have her revenge, but in order to do that, she has to let him live. Knowing the information about Luke would also be pretty valuable, and I think that she'll either end up hiding it by going off into the galaxy, or that she herself will be killed. This would mean that Vader never finds out where Obi-Wan is, and that he doesn't discover Luke is also his child. It also in some ways allows Reva to get her revenge, because Luke going on to stop Vader completes her mission from a certain point of view. Now lastly, there's also the matter of Qui-Gon Jinn. I was expecting Obi-Wan to be at his lowest point come episode 5, and then he'd finally get a message from him, which would inspire him to do more. However, I think they're probably saving that until the end of the season. The whole series has been about a lost Obi-Wan finding his way again, and Qui-Gon appearing at the end would be the cherry on top for him. He would have finally learned what happened to Anakin, and though this was a failing, he could realise that he'll right the wrongs of the past in protecting Luke. It would bring everything full circle, and sort of be a bit like poetry or rhyme. Anyway, that's the end of Theory Time. Theory Time, is it right, is it wrong? We don't know, we'll find out soon on Theory Time. And then of course, love to hear your thoughts, so make sure you comment below and let me know. We are running a competition right now and giving away 3 copies of Everything Everywhere All at Once on the 15th of July, and all you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts and theories. We pick the comments at random on the 15th, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at HeavySpoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of the last episode, which will be linked on screen right now. We went over all the cool Easter eggs in it, talked about our theories, explained the characters, and just generally had a blast. Hopefully see you over there, but if not, thanks for sitting through the video. Take care, peace.